coming up next, we have Catherine, and she's going to be talking about building actually on some of the bits about international that Ahmed was talking about there. Or is it? Yes, sorry, I can see pictures here and it confuses me. Anyway, so yes, we have Catherine up next, and she's going to be talking about SEO in more of an international context. So if we give her a big welcome to the stage, that'd be amazing.
Hi everyone, my name is Pear Goulbourne. Some of you actually know me as Pear. Let me explain really quickly. So Pear is actually my Thai name, by the way. I didn't just like point at a bit of fruit one day and was like, that will make a sweet nickname. So that's legitimately my Thai name. So it's really nice to meet you all. And I am a SEO strategist at Oban International. And Oban International are a digital marketing agency based here in Brighton. And what we do is we specialize in content, technical SEO, and paid media for international brands and brands who want to expand into new international markets. So that's what we do at Oban. What I'm going to do today is talk to you about how to find content gaps when you don't speak the language. So these are the areas that we'll be covering in today's talk. Hopefully it should give you everything you need to find those content gaps on your own. What we will not be covering is how to learn a language in 22 minutes, because that is absolutely not what this talk is about. If that's what you're expecting, then I'm really sorry. I don't have a secret formula or hack that's going to help you do that, I'm afraid. What I do have, though, are some tips and tricks that I've used in the past to identify content gaps for markets I didn't speak the language for, and basically how I did that on my own without having to hire someone who does speak that language to do that initial piece of research for me. So that's what I'm hopefully going to teach you today, and yeah, let's get straight to it. So, why you need to know your market first? Okay, market research aside, because you definitely need to do your market research, is basically finding out what the search engine split is for the market you'll be moving into. And part of that will be finding out, is Google the preferred search engine in that market? Because if the answer is no, you're going to need to find out what a search engine that is. And part of that will be finding out things like the ranking factors and algorithm updates, because it will affect the kind of content that you create and the kind of areas of SEO that you will need to focus on in order to rank well within those markets. So if it's not Google, find out what the preferred search engine is, do your research. So to give you an example, Naver is the South Korean search engine of choice, and Naver actually puts a lot of emphasis behind things like Naver Cafe, which is like their blogging platform, and things like social news outlets and social communities, so much so that they are actually ranking factors within Naver itself, and those listings can appear above organic listings within those SERPs. So see what I mean? You really need to find out, because you need to be producing the right kind of content and producing content that that search engine wants you to rank for in that market. So find out what the split is. So let's talk competitors now. Who are they? How do we compete against them? How do you identify them if you don't know who they are? So when you think of competitors, you normally think of a set like this. So you know who they are. They're normally in the same industry as you. They normally sell a very similar product, probably have a very similar global presence. Shouldn't be a surprise. And these are the people you concentrate on, right? Well, yes and no. So what we tend to do at Oban when we do competitor analysis is we do two separate groups. So one group are your perceived competitors, who we've just talked about. So again, industry, same product, shouldn't be a surprise. You should know who they are. The other set are your SEO competitors, and they can be completely different from your perceived ones. And they don't have to be in the same industry as you. They don't even have to sell a similar product to you. Your SEO competitors are people you compete with in SERPs. So they are appearing in results for keywords and queries that you want to rank for. And if they are appearing higher than you, then they are definitely a competitor, and they need to be considered as such. So that's why we split them into two groups. Sometimes there's an overlap, but it's the exception and not the rule. So that's why there are two groups. And why do we split them into two groups like this? Because when we actually go to our competitors, or our clients, I should say, when we go to our competitors, we're not doing that. When we go to our clients, we actually give them the full SEO and content landscape. So they know exactly who they're competing against in what areas, and that they're going to see basically the full landscape. And they're going to be able to compete more evenly within that market. So if you just focus on one area or the other, you may miss out on opportunities. So make sure you do your competitor research on both groups. Now, if you notice, I've actually put 4 here in the circles of each group. That's going to be really important later on, so remember, 4 is the magic number. So perceived competitors to one side, because you should know who they are. Let's find out who your SEO competitors are. So again, I'm going to talk about quite a few different tools in this talk. These are my preferred tools. You can use whatever tools you prefer to find out this information, so just as a heads up. So this is SEMrush, and what I'm going to do here is basically find the SEO competitors of Nike in the US. And what I'm going to do is obviously choose the market that I want, so the US in this case, select Nike, paste the URL, press enter, and the tool will spit out a list of competitors that it believes are the most relevant to that brand within that market. And what you have here are a list of competitors based on quite a few different things. So things like common keywords shared with that brand, so pretty obvious. And other things like competition like percentage level, which is based on a few different factors. But the point I'm trying to make here is this tool will do it for you and it will speed up the process. So what you need to do is export the list in whatever tool you're using, remove anyone irrelevant, because whilst tools are smart, they can also be really stupid. So remove anyone you don't need, and now you have a list of competitors in that market, in the SEO group, that are most important to least important. Use that as a basis. So that's how you find your SEO competitors. Why you need to do that for every single market? Because it will change. So using Nike again as an example, on one side we've got our perceived competitors, and on the other side we've got your SEO competitors. Perceived competitors, no one here should be a surprise, makes complete sense. The SEO competitors, however, if you notice, when we do that bit of research for the USA, in terms of SEO, the most important competitor for Nike is actually Foot Locker. And if we do that same bit of research, say, in Japan, the competitor is Skit. Like, I don't know who they are, but in Japan they seem to be quite important. So that's why you need to do your SEO competitor research every single time, because if you do it just for one and assume it's going to be the same everywhere, you're going to be making a big mistake, because chances are it just won't be. So that's how you find out competitors. Let's talk about how to find those content gaps now. Before I do that, I really want to talk about something quite important, and I want to remind you about this because I want to encourage good habits within the community. So, before you start looking for new content gaps and getting carried away and hiring freelancers to produce really exciting content, check your content inventory. Please, please, please do this. Why do we do this? Because doing this will help us minimize the production of duplicate content by accident later on, because it does happen. We get carried away, we forget what we've had before, make something really exciting, only to discover that we've actually done this bit of content before. So not only is that a massive waste of time, it's going to potentially cannibalize your old work, so it's not going to help anyone. So please get into the habit of checking your content inventory before you start finding content gaps. And when you start making content off the back of those content gap analysis or content gap research, whatever you want to call it, start adding those pieces of content into your content inventory. So make it a habit. So you know the process of basically producing, publishing, just add it in there before reporting, just so you have it in there and it becomes a good habit later on in the future. So let's say you've checked your content inventory, you know what you have, you're not going to duplicate on anything because you have a good idea. Excellent. Now let's find those gaps. So what you need to do first is remember 4, the magic number I said earlier. There's a very good reason why. So limiting your competitors down to 4 will help you focus on the most important people, because there are so many you can get carried away and no one has time for that. So focus on the 4 most important. So I picked 4 here, and what I'm going to do is find the keyword equity of those 4 competitors. And why I'm going to do that? Because out of those 4, I need to know who is the most important and who do I need to look at first. So how do we do that? SEMrush again. I really love this tool because this has a really nice chart diagram here. You put all the URLs into the content gap section, select the country, it spits out this list. So there's 2 options. There's like a keyword option and the chart option, which is what this is. What this does is it tells you very quickly where the gaps are or who you need to pay attention to. So where there is a circle, that represents one brand's keyword equity. Where there is no overlap of circles means that that competitor is owning areas of conversation that your brand is currently not visible for or ranking for. So when you come to look at competitors later on, keep this in mind, because these are the people you need to look at first and pay particular attention to. Now you've got to find the keywords. So we're going to use Ahrefs here because I like the format and I think it's really nice and simple. Same process, all the URLs, including the brand you're researching, select the market, it spits out this really helpful list. Export it and remove anything irrelevant. So sometimes it will include things like competitor brand key terms that you don't need to rank for or care about. So remove those. Once you've gotten rid of all of the irrelevant keywords, you now have a list of keywords that those competitors rank for that you don't in that market. So doing this and the keyword equity work that you did previously will start giving you like a priority list in your head. You'll start to form an idea of what kind of content you need to create around what kind of topics, who you need to look at in order to be inspired by or potentially steal ideas from and improve on, and things like keywords. So if you look at a keyword set and think, they're ranking for these keywords that I am not, okay, what content are they building around this? What can I build around this that will make it better? What can I find that will help me produce content that is better than my competitors? So doing this will give you a priority list in your head, and you will be able to start planning the content already. So what we do here is crawl competitor websites, because we need to get a database of content, because it's far easier to do this than it is to go and manually trawl competitor websites, paste the URLs and just save it. It's just a mess. Just don't. Save yourself the time, use Screaming Frog, crawl competitor websites and export that list, because you're going to need it later on. Export it, put it into Excel, really make it your own. So this is where you add additional value on top of what you already have. So the tool has helped you halfway. This is how you add that extra half onto that. So clean it up in Excel, brand it, do whatever you want. And what I like to do to help me speed up the next step is add additional bits of information. So things like seasonality and demographics and, you know, content themes or pillars that I spot. And you can normally get those from things like the URL as well. So it's not complicated. You know how it says like how to and summer and woman, man, and that's in the URL. You can do that really quickly and easily. So I would add those columns, you know, whatever is going to be helpful to you, add those in there. Add filters, because it will speed up the process. So don't skip this. It really does help you. So the main part is the assessment. So the manual assessment of quality content on your competitor sites. No tool is going to do this as well as you do, by the way. I don't have a secret tool to tell you to use. It's you. So you're probably sat there going, okay, I'm doing this for a German market. I don't speak German. What's your trick there? And my trick is genuinely auto-translate in the browser. I know that's not what you want to hear, and it's a bit controversial because auto-translate can be a little bit rubbish. And I get that, I really do. But when I was doing this for a client who were a German client, I don't speak German, by the way. I speak Thai, don't speak German. By the way, yeah, Pear, speak Thai, but yeah. So I don't speak German, and what you do is you use the auto-translate in the browser to help you guide and understand a little bit of the context. And the other things you can actually assess without knowing the full context, in terms of if you don't understand the language, the auto-translate is just a little bit rubbish. There are other things like video, how the content is structured. Is it a nice structure? Does it look like quite a well-written piece of content? Are there clear CTAs? Is there nice imagery on the website? You know, all these things don't rely on language. You are a good assessor of content, and regardless of whatever language you speak, I truly believe that deep down inside, most people know what good quality stuff is. So if you go onto something and you think this is a bit thin, this is a bit rubbish, oh, there's no video, I don't understand what's going on here, it's a bit rubbish, chances are it is. So there's so much you can actually assess yourself without knowing the language fully. But use the auto-translate in the browser just to help you navigate around. So this is what you should have by now, and if you don't, you've probably missed out on a step. So please go back and do it, because all of this feeds into your content gap analysis, and it will be important later on. So remember how I said do the manual assessment? Part of that will be obviously going in, looking at the content, but it will also be things like taking screenshots, saving URLs, putting into a Word doc or a PowerPoint, or whatever you're going to put your content gap research in. Start dumping that in there, because this is the evidence and the resource that you'll need to refer back to when you produce and plan your own content. So this is all you should have. It should go into the gap analysis, which should be structured kind of like this. Now, You're free to do this however you want. This is how I structure it. And the reason I do this is so I don't miss out on anything by accident. So if you do it like this, you're not going to miss out on anything. The only other section I would recommend you kind of add or not add, depending on how much you find, is the other. And basically, this is anything that isn't particularly SEO, like important for SEO or brand, but you think is a really nice idea. So if you see something on a competitor website, you think, oh, that's a really nice user experience, or that's a really nice bit of guerrilla marketing that they've done there, or this is a really nice piece in a magazine that I've just stumbled across. This is where you put that information, because you need to include things that are outside of search as well. So add those in there. It is optional, but I highly recommend you do it. So that's basically it. I know you're probably thinking, really? No, honestly, it's not hard. That is it. You know how to do a good content gap. You've done a solid bit of work here if you've done it correctly. And what do we do now? How do we take that bit of research further? Because at the moment, it's just a bit of research that's just sat there. How do we take it further? How do we put it into production? What do we do? What's the best thing? So you get yourself some limes. And when I mean limes, I don't mean like little balls of green fruit, by the way. So limes are, when we refer to them in OBAN, are international professionals we have all over the world, and they're called local in-market experts. So we have a network of them that we work with regularly, that we vet and interview. So we know that they are quality people who are going to help us. And the reason why we use limes is because they are native speakers. Now you're sat there going, I thought you could do this without, learning the language. You can, and you have done. You've done so much research on your own. This is just getting someone who does live and breathe that culture and know that language to help you take it one step further. It is optional, but I highly recommend it. And this is why. So, at OBAN, and hopefully everywhere else, what you should do is localize, never translate. And you shouldn't directly translate for this reason. So the US Dairy Association, back in the 90s, launched this campaign, Got Milk. I think some of us have heard of it, some of you might be too young. But it was really, really popular. And they wanted to launch it in Mexico because it was doing so well. Great, what a really good idea. Problem with that is, they didn't actually get a lime to verify any of their content or QA their slogan. So when they launched in Mexico, they launched with, "Are you lactating?" instead of "got milk." So needless to say, a little bit of a PR disaster that could have been completely avoided. The other thing we use limes for is to basically verify things like keyword research as well. So they don't just do localization and write content for us. They actually provide areas, they provide us with help in other areas as well, like keyword research. So here is a client example that we've used in the past. We've worked with in the past. And basically, they sell things like tracksuits and wellies and things like that. And what they wanted to do was move into the German market. They came to us with a list of keywords that they had directly translated from their English keyword set. And they came up and said, "This doesn't look right. Are you sure this is what we should be launching? We're not sure. Can you double check and tell us if there are any better keywords that we should be using?" So we took that list from the client and we worked closely with our German lime. And what ended up happening was the German lime actually provided us with more useful localized keywords that German consumers actually use in Germany. And not only, was it better for the consumer because it's actually language and terminology that they use, those keywords actually came with a buttload more search volume as well. So good for the consumer and good for SEO. So we took that to the client, showed it to them, they absolutely loved it, implemented it, and basically this is the result. So we actually checked this before BrightonSEO to see if it was still doing well. And those localized keywords are still giving that client visibility in Germany, and it's just continued to grow over time. And this is something we wouldn't have been able to do had we not had that additional lime input. So if you are wondering why limes are important, this is why. They help you take your work one step further because you do good work, but you can genuinely make it great and take it to new heights. So I've actually talked a lot. I've said a lot of very different things. Some of you may think, a little bit conflicting. So let's do a final recap. So, why I did this talk was because I was actually tasked by a client to find content gaps for a market I didn't know the language for, and it was the German market. I don't speak German. And instead of saying no, I actually thought, you know what? I can do content gap. I'm good at research. I'm a good SEOer. surely I can do this. Surely I can at least try. So that's what happened. And I delivered the work successfully, and the client loved it. So this is why I'm doing this talk, to inspire you and help you today to at least try. I understand that sometimes what I've told you or the tips that I've shown you may not work for some clients, and that's fine, but it's always worth trying, because if you can't continue the research, you can give it to a Lyme who can take it further, and it wouldn't have been a waste of time because you would have done at least some groundwork. So the pink box, or that phase, as I call it, is the research phase, and you can actually do that on your own, and I have done it on my own. So I'm saying here, if you have the right tools and the right attitude, you can find those gaps and do that market research. And the actual blue phase is what I call the production phase, and this is basically the phase where you will need a market speaker, because I haven't taught you how to speak German in 20 minutes, and you're not going to learn how to do that. So make sure when it comes to the actual production and QA and particular market insight, hire someone who does live and breathe that culture and speaks that language. So hopefully I've taught you how to do that. If you have any questions, or if I've gone too quickly, please tweet me on Twitter and I will answer any questions there, or grab me after this session. And yeah, good luck finding those content gaps, and thank you so much for listening to my talk.
Thank you.